Congressman, thank you so much for being here. Let me start with
thanks for having me on. And I was listening to the Attorney General, and I think he was right on that it really is questions for Rahm Emanuel and former President Clinton. Joe Sestak only in that he has issued a seemingly political statement that is a little bit in contradiction to his earlier statements. But as he said, Joe Sestak hasn't done anything wrong because he did turn down this job rather than, if you will, barter for something better, as many politicians might have done with an offer like this.
Now, Congressman, the Attorney General's analysis there, Michael Mukasey's analysis, was that on one of the main statutes, which is 18 U.S.C. Section 600, he doesn't see that being a problem necessarily unless the truth is something other than what the parties have suggested. In other words, he said if they offered him the position of Secretary of the Navy, as was earlier rumored but not confirmed, that would be a potential problem. Both sides, though, are now saying that was not the offer. Your reaction to that?
Well, I certainly think that if you're dealing with maybes, yes, maybe no, that's what the special investigator would be for. And I agreed with the Attorney General. It should be somebody who is sufficiently independent and able to go into the White House and ask tough questions. It is very, very clear that both 600 and 595 do read as though they apply. And I'm not going to play lawyer on television, but I understand the word appointment in 600, and I understand the word Senate race in 595, and it appears as though this appointment, paid or unpaid, offered by somebody other than the person of power, but at the bequest of that person, would fall under those statutes, at least for an outsider to evaluate. You might remember in the Clinton White House, they pretty well said they were okay on the dismissal of the travel office until the FBI went in, and then it was not so okay.
You know, Congressman, this morning we get the stunning news that our former president, Bill Clinton, was right smack dab in the middle of this whole thing, that Rahm Emanuel essentially used him to reach out to Congressman Sestak to try to, what the White House now admits, get him to get out of this Senate primary. And they offer all sorts of reasons why they thought that was a good idea, but the essence of it is they admit that they wanted him out. Your reaction to learning that the former president was involved in this and that now we have confirmation that Rahm Emanuel was essentially behind the whole thing?
Megyn, it's very clear that President Clinton doesn't want to leave politics, but more importantly, that the White House wanted some sort of plausible deniability. But, you know, when I was a very young person, and you were not yet born, Richard Nixon had some deniability from the plumbers until he began becoming part of the cover-up. And at this point, 10 weeks later, lots of witness tampering, or at least witness interrogation by people who are self-serving. We're beginning to go down that same road. It's now time for the president to say, enough is enough. I promise to have higher integrity, and that will include having somebody on the outside tell us what we did right or wrong, just as somebody on the outside is going to have to talk about and see what Mineral Management Service did wrong leading up to the largest oil spill in American history.
Do you believe, sir, that there was coordination potentially between the White House and Congressman Sestak on their respective statements?
You think? Absolutely, Megyn. We learned that they had contacted Joe Sestak's brother, his campaign manager, and they obviously did coordinate the statement. What we find interesting, because Admiral Sestak has been pretty straight shooter through this whole process, is that Joe has to now tell us, how is it that a person in the White House was your earlier statement and a straight offer rather than general talk? That's going to be a problem for Joe Sestak now to make sure we understand that 10 weeks of his repeating the same explicit statement seems to be a little different now, but still outside of what would be ethical behavior or even legal behavior in this case.
Do you see an inconsistency then between Sestak's statement that it was a job that was offered by the White House and his statement today that it was a position on an advisory board that was unpaid, offered to him in sort of a casual conversation by President Clinton?
Well, I see a lot of inconsistencies. Casual conversation, non-paid position. That's very inconsistent with what Congressman Sestak said before. And, you know, it makes us question whether there's been witness tampering in this case. After all, he is the nominee of the party. The majority of the Senate is at stake in his election. So having the president on his side and having this behind him might be in their mutual best interest. But again, this is not for a partisan member of Congress alone to investigate or have conjecture on. This is why we called for a special investigator Obviously, the Senate joined unanimously among the members of the Judiciary Committee to do the same thing, of the Republicans in the Judiciary Committee. We don't want to investigate the president, but we don't want the president to investigate himself.
Does the president need to speak to this? I mean, we saw President Obama say yesterday that a statement was coming shortly, and then today on the Friday before a holiday weekend, we get a paper higher up in the White House. Someone this directly
from Rama, because there are a lot of answered that they deserve. Republican Rama, of course, is a case of for him is the most ethical